Government business. Order of the day number 1, Higher Education and Research Reform Amendment Bill 2014, resumption of second reading debate.
Senator Lyons.
President. So when I left off on this bill a couple of sessions ago, I noted that Vice-Chancellors had a lot to say about the interest charges, demanding the government reconsider plans to impose a new higher interest rate on students' HECS loans. University students and graduates with existing HECS help debts, currently about 1.2 million people, will be hit with thousands of dollars extra in interest on their loans after 2016, and that is clearly not acceptable, and it's certainly not something students were expecting when we voted in the general federal election in 2013. Currently, there are 750,000 undergraduate students and 250,000 postgraduate students who will face future HECS help liabilities under this bill. Both existing and new HECS help debts will feel the impact of the Abbott government's changes to interest rate indexation from a CPI of 2% to the government bond rate capped at 6%. The current government bond rate of 3.8% is historically very low and more typically stands at 5 to 6%. The government has broken yet another promise, and let's hear them deny that, but this is another broken promise. This is a recipe for social harm, inevitably leading to a society made up of the haves and the have-nots, part of the Abbott government's plan. A plan for $100,000 degrees, crippling debt and vicious cuts to university course funding. This sort of impost on students is not fair. The government is not only asking students to make up the money lost to its cuts, it's asking them to pay for scholarship programs and for research. The experience of deregulation or the removal of price controls across the world in higher education is that fees increase and people from lower socio-economic backgrounds, women and mature-age students, get left behind. And certainly, as a mature-age student in my mid-20s, there is no way I could have imposed a debt of $100,000 on my family when I had 2 children at primary school. I would not have been able to go to university under this proposal. Clearly, I could not have done that. And that seems to be a fact the Abbott government fails to acknowledge when it says over and over again there are no upfront fees. But there is certainly a big, fat debt at the end of a university degree. And as a mature-age student to Murdoch University, I could not have saddled my family with that sort of debt. The fact that lending institutions already ask applicants seeking housing loans now about their HECS debt indicates that students will take the prospect of a huge HECS bill into account as well. Housing prices, of course, have increased significantly. Certainly they've increased in Western Australia, as have other aspects of the cost of living, not to mention the cost impost imposed by the 2014 budget in and of itself, the tax on GPs, the petrol increase, and so on and so forth. So a student with a big fat HECS debt fronting up for a housing loan may in fact be refused by our lending institutions. And it is certainly more probable that those from disadvantaged backgrounds will be deterred from even entering university. It is interesting to see that some on the Abbott government side and their supporters are calling our campaign to let university students know about these $100,000 degrees as a scare campaign. In my home state of Western Australia, one of our prestigious universities, the University of Western Australia, was the first university to announce its 2016 fees under the proposed system. Bachelor-level courses have fees of $16,000 per annum, or $48,000 for 3 years. And Minister Pyne is correct that UWA's fees have not hit the $100,000 mark, but of course what he neglects to say is that 3-year degrees are not worth very much these days, and in fact, for many professions, don't lead to a final qualification. So an undergraduate bachelor degree is simply not enough to be competitive in the jobs market, and it is not enough to achieve the qualifications required for many professions with that one degree. To do a law degree at the University of Western Australia, you need to do a 3-year bachelor degree and then a 2-year master's degree. Fees for that program are currently $47,200. So in effect, the real cost of a degree to get a law degree at UWA would be closer to the $100,000 mark. For an MBA, an extra $47,885 on top of undergraduate fees. Postgraduate civil engineering, another $46,604. Clinical psychologists, Master of Pharmacies. All of these are between the 50s and 60s, and indeed with the Master of Pharmacies up to the 70,000s. And those fees are all on top of the $48,000 for the 3-year undergraduate degree. So a message to Minister Pyne, those are $100,000 degrees. And of course you can't be a profession in those areas I've just talked about without doing the additional 2 years. And they're the sorts of degrees that the Abbott government likes to talk about as somehow people ending up on high incomes, well able to afford the paying it back. But of course these in and of themselves are degrees which will hit the $100,000 mark. Real examples from my home state of Western Australia at the prestigious University of Western Australia. The G of 8 universities, like UWA, will significantly increase fees to fund research. Fee deregulation for these universities is basically a licence to print help debt that students may never, ever be able to pay. Universities Australia has modelled the potential cost of engineering and nursing degrees. They found that, and I quote, at the medium fee increase scenario and with a 4% interest rate, an engineering graduate working full-time faces a help debt of between $98,952 and $113,169 and would repay it over a period of 20 to 25 years. This is compared with the current $46,701 to $49,284 debt and a 14 to 18-year repayment time under the existing arrangements. A nursing graduate under a medium fee increase scenario who works part-time for 6 years after working full-time for 6 years will pay off her student loan of $51,620 over 20 years compared with 17 years to repay a help debt of just $24,646. And that is from the University's Australian media release of the 4th of June. In addition, initial fees provide little indication of how high they will climb. The US deregulation of fees showed us that their fees skyrocketed. A 2-year investigation by the US Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labour and Pensions investigating the rapid expansion of for-profit college enrolments in the USA found that for-profit colleges are more interested in generating profits than they are on education or the welfare of their students. A recent story in The Guardian in the UK, private sector and student profit at the college they call the ATM, revealed that recent changes in the United Kingdom had allowed private for-profit colleges to enrol students eligible for government-supported tuition loans.
It's not disorderly. Senator Fifield, order.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President. So we have these ATM colleges in the United Kingdom that allow private-for-profit colleges to enrol students eligible for government-supported tuition loans, has resulted in what has been termed cash point colleges. Students are encouraged to enrol into these colleges because they can get access of up to £11,000 of student income support, while the college collects the student tuition fees from the government, who lends it to them on behalf of the students, a similar scheme to the HELP scheme in Australia. This has led to a substantial increase in the level of student debt. It has also raised serious concerns about the quality of education students at these colleges receive, given that there seems to be little regard paid to whether students attend classes or complete assignments. The USA and the UK experience demonstrates that there will be private-for-profit providers eager to enter the higher education market where public subsidies are available. These businesses target the most disadvantaged students with persuasive marketing. This attempt by the government to deregulate and turn our universities into some kind of commercial market is wrong. It's been widely condemned by the public. It's been widely condemned by student associations. It is not liked by the universities themselves, and that is why Labor will not vote to allow these changes through the Senate today. Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President.
Thank you, Senator Lyon.